Hey guys, what's up? So I wanted to discuss this, which has actually quite angered me. It's to do with the UK changing its immigration rules for Hong Kong citizens. If a new bill is passed by China, the bill reduces the rights of these Hong Kong citizens and makes them more accountable to China, as they're trying to almost combine back the country, having this kind of same rules. Obviously, China has very strict requirements of its citizens, but basically Boris Johnson wants to enable these people to all come over to the UK. For anyone who isn't aware, I've just had a look at the statistics. Apparently, about 360,000 people have already this kind of right, and this could be extended to another 2.6 million people. I don't like that idea for a couple of reasons. Firstly, China is the epicenter of the coronavirus. You don't know how many of these people still have cases or where they're coming from. We have a very dangerous situation happening in the UK with the number of deaths we've had, second highest in the world, second only to the Americans. And we do not need this exacerbated by people who shouldn't have the right to be here. So it says here, Britain will change its immigration rules and offer millions of people in Hong Kong a route to citizenship if China imposes new security laws, Boris Johnson has said. Writing in the Times, Mr. Johnson said the UK would have no choice but to uphold its ties with the territory. China is facing mounting criticism over its planned law. Many people in Hong Kong fear it could end their unique freedoms, which the rest of China does not have. This can be stuff, for example, with the social media. China has quite a lot of restrictions, even how newspaper reporting occurs, how information travels, and people are usually imprisoned if they don't act in accordance with these laws. The UK is already in talks with allies, including the US and Australia, about what to do if China imposes the new law, which would make it a crime to undermine Beijing's authority and people start fleeing Hong Kong. In the Times on Wednesday, the Prime Minister confirmed that if China passes the law, people in Hong Kong who had British national overseas B&O passports will be allowed to come to the UK for 12 months without a visa. Currently, they are allowed to come for 6 months. Around 350,000 people in Hong Kong currently already have a B&O passport, but 2.6 million others are also eligible. Passport holders would also be given further immigration rights, including the right to work. This could place them on a route to citizenship, Mr. Johnson said. Right, from my point of view, I think if you want to give them a temporary extension to the visa, just to deal with whilst this problem is ongoing, I don't see the problem with that. My concern is that we seem to be letting everyone in. You've got the EU. The big reason why a lot of people voted for Brexit is that we've got freedom of movement from all these EU nations. We have no control of that. And that has actually caused a lot of domestic workers to actually fear for their jobs, fear for their security, fear for how much they're going to be earning, because the more people come in, the lower our wages become, because employers have more choice. And I would say you would have a level of institutional racism within the country. EU workers are considered harder workers, more dedicated, and so on and so forth. This is a narrative which is thrown about by the EU and has actually been disproved by the University of Bath, which conducted a survey to see that European nationalities ended up working at the same rates as British people, between 2 and 5 years of them joining this country. So this has been removed. This kind of stereotype it's a narrative thrown by the EU. Britain will not walk away, adds. The Prime Minister added that the immigration changes would amount to one of the biggest changes in our visa system in British history. If it proves necessary, the British government will take this step and take it willingly. Many people in Hong Kong fear their way of life, which China pledged to uphold, is under threat. If China proceeds to justify their fears, then Britain could not, in good conscience, shrug our shoulders and walk away. Instead, we will honour our obligations and provide an alternative. Hong Kong is a former British colony and it was handed back to China in 1997. As part of an agreement signed at the time, it enjoys some freedoms not seen in mainland China, and these are set out in a mini-constitution called the Basic Law. B&O's passports were granted to all Hong Kong citizens born before the Chinese handover in 1997, and while they allow the holder some protection from the UK Foreign Service, they do not currently give them the right to live or work in Britain. There has been widespread international criticism of China's proposed law, and the UK government's announcement marks a step in Britain's opposition to it. On Tuesday, Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab said the UK was in talks with countries in the Five Eyes alliance about how to handle a potential exodus of people from the area. He urged China to reconsider its plans, which he said would threaten Hong Kong's autonomy and prosperity. Senior MPs from Britain, Canada, Australia and New Zealand have urged the United Nations to appoint a special envoy to Hong Kong to monitor how the new law affects human rights. Earlier this week, 7 former UK foreign secretaries urged Mr Johnson to form a global alliance to coordinate a response. Now, whilst I feel sorry for Hong Kong that China plans to try and restrict their freedoms, I don't think we should be getting involved in some of these countries' affairs. In the first part, we don't know about the coronavirus situation in these areas. We could be potentially putting our own people at risk for the sake of others, which we shouldn't be doing. We're not as rich a country as people like to think. We're kind of being constantly drained through foreign aid and various other costs. What do you guys think of this situation? Are you of that nationality? Do you have any experience of these restrictions? And have you ever been kind of withheld within China? Leave your comments down below, like the video if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe.